Welcome to Dimensions Online Test Series platform. Today we're going to discuss English paper 25. Now, the first one, you need to find the synonym of the given word altercation. Altercation means a noisy argument or disagreement. Okay, so if you look at the options, choice, no, that's not a wrong answer. Charge, no. Heated dispute, yes, that is an answer. Option C is correct. Next one, attractive. Attractive means pleasing or appealing. Okay, so now look at the options. Repulsive means it is kind of offensive or repugnant, or you can say mm, like revolting. So these are the words which are synonymous to that. Quite, if something is quite uninviting. Okay, now loathsome means hateful. Abominable, again, which means loathsome or hateful. Repugnant is again hateful. So for example, if I want to put it in a sentence like uh, attractive, pleasing or appealing to the sentence, now to the senses. Now repulsive means offensive to something. So something is very offensive, then we call it as a repulsive. Rather, loathsome, abominable, repugnant all mean same, which is hateful. For example, the uprising voice of a common man. Uprising voice of a common man was against government is always suppressed with abominable cruelty. Abominable cruelty. So you can use that way. Now, A is the antonym for the given word. Next, correctly spelt word. Verbatim, which means exactly or closely. Okay, or like a word by word or word for word. Next, one word substitutions. A person who can't be approached easily. If someone is not approachable, then we can say he is inaccessible to everyone. He is inaccessible to everyone, which means unreachable or out of reach. Now look at the other words as well. Indifferent. Indifferent means unconcerned about, or someone is not bothered about something. Okay. Next, indomitable. Indomitable, indomitable spirit we say, means unconquerable. Okay. Next one, insensible. Insensible means something inert or senseless. Okay. So the correct option which could be substituted for the given sentence is option C, inaccessible, which means not reachable or out of reach. Next one, that which cannot be understood or known. This one we have seen so many times. Illegible. So something inscrutable, something which cannot be understood or known. So something which cannot be scrutinized, right? Something which cannot be examined or scrutinized. So inscrutable. Let's look at the meanings of the other words as well. Inexorable. Inexorable means relentless. Okay, or restless, or you can say unstoppable, irrevocable. So these are the words which means same. Next, impregnable. Impregnable means invulnerable. For example, strong and secure. In such a sense you can use that. Next one, impenetrable. Impenetrable means if something is unable to pass through something else, then in such case you can say impenetrable, means impossible to pass through. Next one, a fort which cannot be entered into by an enemy. For example, if you look at the word impenetrable, it might look a closer encounter for the given sentence, whereas it's not. So a fort which cannot be entered into by an enemy means a fort is so strong and secured, so and it is invulnerable, so that the fort cannot be entered by an enemy. So what you can use is, it's not impregnable, rather it's not impenetrable, rather you need to use impregnable, which means invulnerable, or something which is strong and secure at the same time, like very strongly built and very well secured, you can say. So in such an instance you need to use impregnable, not impenetrable. Okay, now option B is correct. And we know the meanings of the other words. Inexorable means relentless, and inscrutable means something which cannot be understood. Now, one who fully depends on others. So that is quite clear. You might have heard in our, we might have heard while reading biology in our childhood, right? So parasites, parasite which lives in something else, some other creature, and it relies on that. It takes its own food and it relies on that. So that is known as parasite. So same way, one who fully depends on others, one who relies on someone else, which could mean parasite, or someone who exploits others for self benefit. Okay, in such an instance you can use the word parasite. Option A is correct. Next one, idioms. To keep the wolf from the door. To keep the wolf from a door means to keep oneself at a minimal level. To keep oneself at a minimal level means, for example, someone who is getting satisfied just with the basic needs. So that is called to keep the wolf from the door. So in such an instance you use to keep the wolf from the door, where you just survive with your basic needs, right? Now look at the options. Option C, have enough money to avoid hunger and needs. Enough money, just enough money to avoid his hunger and some basic necessities which he requires. In such an instance, you will use to keep wolf from the door. Next, water under the bridge. So water under the bridge means something that cannot be changed. For example, a certain scenario has happened in your life, in your past, and you don't bother about it now, and you can't, neither you could change it by getting back to it. So something happened in the past which cannot be changed, or about which you are unbothered, okay, or unconcerned. So in such an instance you use this idiom, water under the bridge, something you cannot change. Like next one, a square peg in a round hole. A square peg in a round hole, or similarly it can also be asked like a round peg in a square hole. So which means a misfit. For example, if you look at the options, most fit, misfit. So there's most of the students might be confusing with those two options, but misfit is the correct one, because a square peg in a round hole, which means especially a person unsuited for a position. For example, if you see a guy who is an introvert generally, and he goes for he takes the job of marketing for his own firm. So will he be will he be a correct person to handle the job? No, because a marketing guy needs to market his product, and he needs to talk a lot with the customers. He needs to convince the customers. So there are various jobs that he has to do just with his vocal cord, right? So he need to be vociferous, like he need to be outspoken, and he needs to have the convincing ability to buy their products, to prefer their products. Rather, rather he is an introvert. If a person is an introvert, can he handle these things? No. He generally feels shy to talk to a new person, right? So rather he's a misfit to that job. Correct? No matter how talented he is, for marketing job you need to have a guy who is good with his communication skills, who is able to communicate and properly with his clients, and who has excellent convincing skills, right? Now misfit, he is a misfit to that job. So misfit will be used in that sense. You use this idiom which says a square peg in a round hole. Next one, error detections. Here you need to find the erroneous part. Now, the crowd at the station clapped jubilantly when the champion received his trophy. There is no error with it. The sentence is correct. Next one. Though the first portion of the book was dull, but the later part was quite interesting. Do we use but there? Though the first part was dull, though the first part of the book was dull, yet the second part of the book was quite interesting. So you will see say it in such a way. Even though it was not used there, it is acceptable until and unless but is not used there. So instead of using but, even if you simply have a comma, though the first portion of the book was dull, the second part was quite interesting. You could have said that way. So that is also acceptable, but adding a but to that sentence will not match this context. So but is the erroneous part. So option B goes wrong. Next, people are just likely to be failure through a lack of involvement in their jobs as through sheer incompetence. Incompetence means unskilled, okay, who doesn't possess any skills. Now, people are just as likely, it should not be just likely, rather it should be used as just as likely to be failure through a lack of involvement in their jobs as through their sheer incompetence. Next, you need to improve the sentence with a better phrase or word. Now, he inquired after my death. He inquired after my death. Yes, that is correct. No improvement needed there. Next, the teacher asked me, "What is your name?" See, this is if you look at the options, everything was in kind of reported speech. So the reported part, direct, indirect speech, you know, right? So whenever you tell something in indirect speech, how do you use? The teacher asked me. So that's a question, interrogative type question, interrogative type of a direct, indirect speech. Now, the teacher asked me, "What is your name?" So what is your name is quite assertive. Rather, whenever you are having interrogative type, then you need to convert it, right? So the teacher asked me what my name was. So here the subject precedes the helping verb. So the teacher asked me what my name was. I am not using is here. Why? Because the asked in the sentence, in the former part, tells me that it is in past, right? We know very well that in direct and indirect speech, reporting verb and reported verb, at least one of them is in past, then the whole speech, indirect speech, will be in a past tense. If both of them are in past, then you need to use past participle. Next, Navin has left when I reached home. So when he reaches home, when he reached home, an action had happened prior to that. So whenever two actions had happened and both of them are in past, the action which happened prior to another action, then the action one need to be used told in a past perfect, right? By the time I reached the station, the train had already left. So as by the time when I reached his home, Naveen had left. So had left is the correct one. Next one, Maya has managed to complete the work I gave her. There is nothing wrong with this. So Maya has managed to complete the work I gave her. So no improvement required. Next one. Look at the fillers. Who she when she parted dash her parents, her eyes were full of tears. When she parted from her parents, her eyes were full of tears. So option A. Work hard dash you should fail. Work hard lest you should fail. Lest is a word which having a negative sense embedded in it, right? Next one. So if you don't work hard, you will fail. That's what it means. Work hard lest you fail. Lest you should fail. Next. At last he yielded to temptation. So yield followed by to. Next. The rebellion was put dash in no time. So put out or put off. So these are all phrasal verbs. So here the rebellion was suppressed. Suppressed means you need to use something which means the same. So put down is a phrasal verb which could mean suppress. So down is the correct preposition that can be followed by the word put. Next one. If you look at the passage, so in this passage he is talking about Confucius, an emperor, a king of China. So look at the passage. While he supported the idea of a strong emperor, probably because of the chaotic chaotic state means disorderly state or a disorganized state of China at his time. Confucius at the same time argued for limit on the power of rulers. He thought that honesty was of paramount importance. Paramount means prime, vital, or which is major, key. So these are the words which are synonymous to that. Even in facial expression, truth must always be represented. So he was asking for the, I mean, he was asking for the king's what do you say, king's powers to be limited. So king need to be honest, right? He emphasized the need to give due respect to superiors. So he emphasized means highlighted. Next, however, the inferior means those who are lower in ranks. Generally, the ones who are lower in ranks, their words will not be heard by the ones who are superior to them. Correct. So that's how. So if an inferior, though he is lower in rank, if he has a good idea, that has to be implemented. So that's what Confucius wants to say to the kingdom, right? So, however, the inferior must give advice to his superior if the superior was in the wrong. This idea was followed a century after Confucius' death by his disciple Mencius, who argued that if the king was not acting like a king, he would lose the mandate of heaven and be overthrown. Therefore, tyrannicide is justified. Tyrannicide means tyrannicide. So, tyrannicide means killing of a tyrant. Tyrant means king. Okay. Next, because a tyrant is more a thief than a king. Other Confucian texts recognize the failings of real rulers in maxims such as maxim means like a quote, an oppressive government is more feared than a tiger. Now Confucius liked the idea of strong emperor because China at the time was chaotic. Next, facial expression should express truth. Next one. So tyrannicide means killing of a tyrant. Tyrant means I already told you an oppressive or uncruel, I mean oppressive or a cruel ruler, right? Next, so murder of a tyrant. Oppression government is a government that is worse than a tiger. That's what mentioned in the passage. With this we finish paper 25. We shall see the next paper in the next session. Thank you. Keep watching. Keep subscribing to the channel. Have a good day.